I'm going to bring this meeting to order. We're going to stand for a moment of silent meditation or prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, number 1A. During the pandemic, Michelle Benitez and Harvey Kilner received information from people in the community regarding a local distillery, 1675 Spirits, who transitioned their business from selling alcohol to making hand sanitizer. The Bensalem Police Department was one of the first recipients of the hand sanitizer. The mayor, council, along with Deputy Director Harron, Michelle Benitez, and Harvey Kilner would like to acknowledge the efforts of the owners of 1675 Spirits, Mr. Ian Monagle and Randy Taylor. Michelle?
Good evening, thank you.
Mayor, do you want to go? Come on.
I'd like to thank Mayor DiGirolamo, Fred Harron, Harvey Kilner, my friend here, for coming together and supporting small business in Bensalem. This conversation sort of started during the pandemic in the very beginning when the small businesses were being terribly impacted. Harvey and I talked and said, hey, how can we help? Small businesses always step up for us. What are we going to do for them? And through conversations and relationships with the gentleman you see here, and also given feedback from our community, we wanted to recognize 1675 Spirits for transitioning and adapting to the times. Normally they'd be making alcohol, which is, something that we enjoy here, but they transitioned right into hand sanitizer during a really critical time. It helped their business to remain successful, and it supported those in our community. They made tremendous donations to our police department, and so we wanted to thank them and recognize them for their commitment to service in Bensalem. So tonight we have an award presentation for them, along with a check for $250 that they can donate to a Bensalem nonprofit of their choice. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Stay right here. In case everybody doesn't remember these bottles, they were all over town, so here's one that we still have. I warn everybody not to drink these. They smell exactly like alcohol, they really do. So we want to thank you guys for the great job and doing it for the community that you did. So, thank you.
No, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
There it is. That's it.
Things really get tough on the training.
Wait, can we just get one picture with everybody?
You want to, anyone want to say something? Anyone want to say anything quick?
On behalf of Michelle, Harvey, Fred, the mayor, everyone here, we were happy to be able to do anything that could help the community during this crazy of a year, to put it, and we're truly appreciative of you guys thinking of us, and we were very happy to do it. So thank you very much.
Ian, I got a question. What's 1675 stand for?
So do I have to speak in the ear?
Yeah, of
Okay, all right. 1675 is representative of Bristol Pike, which is historically known as the King's Highway, dated and commenced the highway in 1675. So it's the oldest highway in the continental United States to date. So pretty cool that we have it in our backyard. So
Absolutely. Did you see me sweat my body right through there? Didn't have to. A year ago, I wouldn't have fit through.
He escaped already?
Yeah, I escaped.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Explain to us what the 1619 project is. No, it's okay. I'm kidding.
I'm surprised there's not more people here. I know, so am I. You know, first meeting back. I figured it'd be packed.
Yeah.
No? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, number two on the...
Mr. President, if you don't, I would ask just a quick minute, just to also thank 1675.
Sure, go right ahead.
We'd like to extend our sincere thanks to 1675 for their efforts to support our community. It's no small thing, and I think I speak for all of us up here when express our gratitude, and it's pretty cool how you converted that business over like that. So, sure, yep. Secondly, I thought it was also important to take an opportunity to thank the numerous other businesses, schools, and community organizations right here in Bensalem who donated PPE supplies, community organizations right here in Bensalem donated PPE supplies, meals, snacks, money, and support to our first responders throughout the pandemic. I think it shows how great our Bensalem community steps up in times of need. And there was a number of different businesses, organizations that had supported our emergency services over the last year. Some of them, the list is by no means comprehensive, but it includes Bensalem Christian Life Academy, Betty and Scott from Jack's Cold Cuts, Carrabba's, Chick-fil-A, Chris and Daniela O'Rourke, Cityline Construction, Courtyard by Marriott, Delphi Behavioral Health, Downey Landscaping, Grange Insurance, Home Depot, Carf and Cerruti, who also donated PPE to our police department, Lachenna, Lions Club, Lowe's Home Improvement, Matt's Woodworks, Michael's Diner, and Jonas and Company, NDP Trading, Packet Displays, Panache Catering, Police and Fire Credit Union, Presto Tape, Prohl Family and Trifecta, Red House Bagels, Rotary Club, Serapos, Spice Rack, St. Gregorius, Malanka Orthodox Church, Tuesday, Circle of Grace, and Turbo Draft as some of the few that I saw that had pitched in and helped us over the last year in this pandemic. So just a sincere thanks to all of them too as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick moment, if since we're trying to name everybody. Andy Zhang from Sakura, Japanese. Andy Zhang from Sakura Japanese restaurant, and China's Son donated 1,500 masks in the beginning of the pandemic when they were hard to get, and donated them to our police department. 1,500, and he paid for them. You know, so after a while they became like second nature around, but in the beginning they were hard to get. And he secured them for our first responders, so we appreciate that also. Thank you.
Okay, number 2 on the agenda, is there any public comment on any agenda items? Seeing no one come forward. Number 3 on the agenda, approval of council minutes for meeting date May 24th, 2021. Do we have any additions or corrections? If not, a motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from Monday, May 24th, 2021, as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions, ayes have it 5-0. Mr. Pizzo, do we have any agenda items off or changes?
Yes. First, Darren, back in the control room, asked me to remind all of you, and I realize this is the first time back in the meeting room in over a year for most of you. We can only have a certain number of microphones on at a time, so when you're not using your microphone, please turn it off. And when you are speaking, please remember to turn it on. So it seems simple, but it's meaningful to what he's able to do back there. Secondly, as to item number 4 on the agenda, Mr. Polari, which was a continuation of the conditional use hearing for New Singular Wireless that was begun at the last council meeting, I received correspondence from council for New Singular earlier this afternoon advising that one of their expert witnesses was unable to attend the night's meeting. And so they've asked if they could have the hearing tabled to a date certain of July 12, 2021. They have granted the township the applicable waivers of time under both the MPC and the FCC regulations for the continuation of this hearing through July 12, 2021. So if council is of a mind, the appropriate action would be to table the hearing to a date certain of July 12th.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 5 on the agenda, consideration of final land development for Westechia Incorporated, Street Road and Castle Drive. Proposed use is retail. Zoning classification is GC General Commercial. Tax parcel 237-39, 2-3740. Do we have counsel or someone here? Nobody's here. Mr. Potter, did you get any calls from her or anything?
I did not receive any contact advising that they would not be in attendance this evening. As you will recall, this was on your agenda for your last meeting, and it was tabled to a date certain, I believe, of this evening. Let me double-check the minutes just to make sure that that is correct.
Yeah, that's what I put in my notes.
So my suggestion would be at this time that we move on to the next item on the agenda. Let me see where we are as far as the extension of time previously granted under the municipality's planning code to see whether this is something that we, oh no, I'm sorry. As I'm looking here at the, in the packet, we do have an open-ended extension of time under the MPC. So I believe the appropriate action at this point would be to table this to your next meeting.
Put down a formal motion to table to June 28th.
I'll second it.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0.
Excuse me.
Number 6 on the agenda, consideration of a final land development for Raymond and Richardson R&R Produce and Garden Center, 1215 Bristol Pike. Proposed use commercial produce and garden center. Zoning classification is general commercial. Tax parcel 2-29-422.
Please, counsel, Kenneth Fetterman for the applicant.
Kenneth Fetterman for the applicant, Ray Richardson and R&R Produce. Very briefly, this situation was a result of Mr. Richardson's acquisition of the property located at 1215 Bristol Pike. That property previously was used as a produce/garden center outlet for the last at least 2 to 3 decades. Mr. Richardson came in, bought the property, essentially continued its use, but it seemed as though it wasn't clear what zoning had been approved and not been approved over the years. So we went in front of the zoning board first, originally thinking we didn't really need many variances, but we ended up with 7, in effect legitimizing the existing use and ongoing use of the property. This way it's now well documented. From there, we were told to go to minor land development. We submitted an application in March. That application was quite comprehensive and included a request for actually 12 waivers. Again, these waivers are primarily the result for the way the property exists, and we're not trying to recreate necessarily or redo the entire property. We're just trying to improve it. As a result of the submission, there was a comment letter issued by Mr. Benner's office and Council's engineer is working with Ms. Dotz to work through all the comments, and we're going to comply with all the requests, and that's really where we are. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Dotz, who can go through the review letter, answer any comments or questions.
If that plan is there for us, that you're going to show us or anything, you got to bring it up front so we can see it.
I'm sorry, did you say you're going to comply with all the waiver requests?
We're going to comply with the review comments. Of course, the waiver request we need.
So we're going to go through the review letter totally when you're done.
Sharon Dotz from Gilmore and Associates. I'm the engineer on this project. As Mr. Fetterman said, all of the comments will be addressed to Russ's satisfaction. We do have several waivers to go through, and if you have any questions on specific items within the review letter, I'm certainly more than willing to answer them. But should we start by going through the waivers?
Yep, well, let's go through the whole Chapter 201 subdivision and land development. You can tell us which ones you're complying with, what you want for waivers, so everything's on the record, one at a time.
Okay.
So letter D, Section 201 subdivision land development, you want to go through those item by item?
All right, item number 1 is adding additional notes to the plan. That's a will comply. Number 2 is also a will comply. Number 3 is in regard to the ultimate right-of-way. That is also a will comply. Number 4 is also a will comply. Number 5 is a waiver request. This was to provide all existing sewer lines, water lines, fire hydrants, et cetera, within 400 feet of the property boundary. We requested a waiver. We provided a high-quality aerial photograph in lieu of the detailed survey. We have been asked to show existing utility services and storm information for the property itself. We are showing everything to the limit of our knowledge.
Mr. Benner, are you okay with that?
Yes.
So is a waiver needed, or do
Yeah,
they-
there is a formal waiver that's needed. They'll supply the high-quality aerial, and then the only clarification they sounded like they were agreeable to the 2 conditions that we have, which is locations, utility lines, and those stormwater features.
Okay, thank you.
Number 6?
Number 6 is to provide a benchmark. We will identify, there's a sanitary sewer right out front, we'll identify as our benchmark.
That's will comply.
Yes.
Number 7?
Number 7 is, again, will comply.
Number 8?
That's an addition of a note, that's will comply.
Number 9?
Again, this has to do with public utilities. We show them to the extent we know them. So that's a will comply.
Mr. Benner, you're okay with that?
Yes.
Number 10?
Clarification that the ultimate right-of-way is to be dedicated, will comply.
11?
Adding a note for the land alteration permit, will comply.
Number 12?
This is another waiver request. Cut and fills adjacent to the property line. We do go right up to the property line. There's an existing chain link fence around the property so that they can't go beyond that fence. Obviously, if they were to remove the fence, they have to notify the neighbor that they'll be going over across that. There are notes in the plan to that effect.
Don't we have setbacks?
There's a 3-foot requirement that all construction has to stop once it gets within 3 feet of the property line. And then she's asking for, obviously, a waiver of that requirement. Once again, if council wants to consider that, we would request 2 conditions and notes be placed on the plan stating that, one, there'll be some type of fencing and the property line staked out, so everybody knows where the property line is. And then the other one is there be a note stating that there can be no encroachment without permission of the adjoining landowner.
No, what was the request? The comment says that this was to address neighbors' concerns. What were the concerns?
Well, the existing site has improvements right up to the edge of the property line. We want to replace the stone that's there with a more infiltratable stone so that it's non-compacted. The rear neighbor was concerned with water going right off the property into hers, so we need to do something right at the edge of the property line.
More permeable surface?
To keep the water into the site.
Okay.
So in order to do that, we have to work right up to the edge of the property line.
Just
Joe,
to
we have
prevent
a letter
stormwater flow
from
onto the neighbor's
one of the
properties.
property
Okay.
owners from last month, too. Do you have that with you?
I do. I don't know if it's applicable to this particular item in the
Right,
letter.
but you do have it with you, so we
But
can get that.
I do have it with me, and the resident is also here this evening.
Okay, good. Thank you. Go ahead, so you're looking for a waiver for 12.
Yes.
Number 13?
This is a waiver on street trees. I think this is possibly a partial waiver. We are doing landscaping in front of the fence against the sidewalk. That was a condition of the zoning variances that were granted. To the extent that it does not meet the street tree requirement, we would ask for a waiver.
Now, Mr. Benner's comment mentions that there's a number of species that are specified in the code which could be planted without interfering with the overhead electrical conductors. Are you aware of that?
We have provided, are working on and provided a landscape plan with the revisions. There are trees there. I think in an abundance of caution, we leave the waiver in there in case it's needed. But we are intending to provide trees and other landscaping in front of the fence.
Mr. Benner, isn't there a tree that they can put on there and agree to that?
Well, there
rather than
is.
a waiver?
And- Yeah, and I just, Sharon, just to clarify, I mean, there is a certain number of trees that are required, and then there's species of trees. Don't you feel that you can comply with that as far as the species of trees there
The
are?
species, yes.
That won't interfere with the utility lines? And then what about the number of trees? Can you also comply with that?
How many are required in that
It
area?
would need 5 trees. I think that we would be hard pressed to get 5 trees across that, given that where the driveway, the
That's
extent
a
of the
wide
driveway.
driveway there. Yeah.
Well, in the past, what we've required to do then, or what's been recommended to do, that if you can't provide them on site, you provide them to the township with an option to plant them somewhere on township-owned property.
Right, but we want some kind of trees there, so let us know how many you think you can realistically put there, and then we can give you, if the board chooses, offer a waiver on the rest. If we give you a waiver, you're not going to be able to do any, and there won't be any trees going in. That's just the way it works, so.
Can we clarify a partial waiver?
Could we do it per the engineer, how many trees?
We can do that, yeah, we can do that.
Well, it's saying 5, and she doesn't, that's what's required, and Sharon says she can't.
There's not much real estate
Yeah,
to
there's not
plant
to
them.
do that, which I think is, I understand that.
Right.
So the question is, and I think that there's really 2 options. 1, you donate the trees to the township, or 2, there's a fee in lieu of for the trees. And if you would agree, and I'm just suggesting this, you could agree to that waiver based upon, that partial waiver based upon them doing one of those 2 things.
And also the recommendation that you as a township engineer could recommend how many could legitimately fit in there, and then the
Correct.
rest of them could be donated.
Yeah.
Or
So
fee
if
in lieu
it's-
of.
If you determine that 3 could reasonably fit in there, we'll put 3 trees, and then you pay for 2.
I know we can get 2. We might be able to get 3. I'm not a landscape architect, so I wouldn't want to
You'll work
say
out.
that
I would
definitively.
say between you and Mr. Benner and the landscape architect on the
Yes.
plan, I'm sure we
I'd
can figure it
agree-
out.
I would agree to that,
Work out a
yes.
partial waiver for the number of trees.
Regardless, you're in agreement to pay the difference cost in lieu of to the township or provide the trees, correct? Okay, provide the trees. Right, why not? There's a business you're in.
14.
14 is a requirement for a landscape plan, that's a will comply.
15.
Is speaking of existing trees, I believe, or no, tree calculations, that's a will comply.
16.
16, topsoil shall not be removed, that's will comply.
17.
That's will comply as well.
Surprised with all the time we have, we couldn't have all this cleared up. Number 18.
18 is another waiver regarding frontage improvements.
I just said comply with everything except for these three waivers. Boom, boom, boom.
Along Bristol Pike.
You're going to have to speak at the microphone, please.
Just very briefly, we submitted the plan, the application in the beginning of March. Things were still not moving quickly at the township level in terms of processing paperwork. Then it had to go to the engineer. We got it back in April. We asked for some clarification on some points. We got that clarification. We submitted a revised plan already, so many of the comments have been addressed.
Okay.
They just weren't cleared off the letter yet.
Okay.
And we're waiting
Thank
for
you.
that response.
Thank you. Okay, number 19.
I think we're still on 18.
We still need
We
to
didn't finish 18.
explain why you need a waiver. You're saying why you need a waiver? It's the front curves?
It's about
Widening of Bristol Pike.
widening of Bristol Pike and curb sidewalks, where the curb's already there, the sidewalk's already there. This is an existing use, we're not adding any traffic, we're just cleaning up the site, so we don't feel there's a need for widening of Bristol Pike.
And Sharon, that's what the waiver, just to clarify, it's not for curbing or sidewalk, it's simply for the widening of Bristol Pike. That's what the waiver request is for, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the widening of Bristol Pike. Well, that would be a PennDOT thing, too. I mean, you can't
Correct.
just widen Bristol Pike.
Is there any issue from the township perspective? I mean, it's an existing nonconformity there, really.
And we looked, there's no properties out there that are widened to full 20 feet width in front of their particular property.
Right, it's,
Okay.
Why would you want to
okay.
Number 19.
Number 19 is a waiver request, again, for planting an average of 10 feet between the edge of parking and the buildings. This is an existing condition. The pavement goes right up to the building. We are replacing what is now an awning for display areas with a greenhouse, and the parking is on the opposite side, but it's an existing condition that the pavement goes right up to the building.
Okay.
Number 20.
Number 20 is a waiver request. This is parking within 15 feet of a property line or right-of-way. This was the basis of or one of the variances that we were granted, therefore we're requesting a waiver.
Twenty-one.
21 is a waiver request. Again, it's curb around the edge of the existing parking. We're using a swale here to intercept flow. We are putting wheel stops in on the pavement to keep the cars from going over the edge, but we would prefer not to put curbing in for stormwater management reasons.
22.
22, it's essentially will comply. There's existing lighting. We're not changing it.
And you'll show that on the plan
Yes.
as part of the compliance.
Yes, the light pole, the utility pole that was noted is actually a light pole.
Number 23.
23 Parking to be screened, as I noted, we are providing screening across the front of the fence between the sidewalk and the site. So that's a will comply.
24?
24, there will be no changes and projected flows from the site, so there would be no need for sewage planning. It's,
Submit the mailer and get the waiver, just
Okay.
to be sure, right?
Will do.
We just, DP likes that. We like it for our record, too.
So that's a will comply.
then it's a will comply. And 25 is a will comply.
21, I have a question on that. Why is it you don't want to not provide curbs, yet you're doing stops anyway?
Well, because water can flow around and under the wheel stops, and it can't flow through a curb.
Okay, I got it.
This is 25.
25 is a will comply. Stormwater management.
Mr. President, can we
Yes.
go back to do section C for zoning? There were a couple comments there, and I don't want to forget to hit those as well.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll do that before we go to stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, there were two comments in section C of the letter on page 3. Sorry, go back a couple pages. And I'm hoping that you can review those as well. Number 1,
Well, I'll start with the easy one. Number 2 is will comply.
okay.
Number 1 gets a little more difficult to explain.
Which is why I asked.
This was discussed at length during the variance, the zoning hearing board meeting, determining what the existing impervious cover on the site is. It is a nonconformity in the amount of impervious that's already there, and it was acknowledged that it's nonconforming. So to say that on this plan that it is conforming and becoming nonconforming would be an untruth.
Are you in agreement with that, Mr. Benner?
I think there's two aspects of the impervious surfaces. One is per the zoning variance that was granted. The second, and I believe that some of this comment is directed that way, is as it relates to stormwater management. And I get the requirement as it relates to impervious coverage, as it relates in the zoning. I think we're looking at it the other way too, which is for stormwater management purposes, that we don't consider that impervious historically. Therefore, in the past, it had allowed water to drain through the parking lot.
Right.
So then when you do your storm drainage improvements, I think what our consideration is, we want that to be considered, because historically, that's how the site has acted. So we're saying, we're fine with zoning, but we like you to consider that pervious as it relates to stormwater comments.
Why is that, if it is in fact impervious?
Once again, it's kind of like two requirements. They got a variance to allow it as impervious coverage over 60% from the zoning hearing board. But they didn't get a variance from us to allow, or the township council to allow for that to be considered impervious as part of the stormwater calculations. If you do consider that impervious, the stormwater management facilities are smaller. They don't control as much runoff. If you consider it as pervious, historically, your facilities are a little larger, you control a little bit more stormwater, and you make an improvement with the stormwater.
So the calculations, if they treat it as pervious, would be more beneficial, show better stormwater management. My concern would be, though, if they're granted, they were granted the variance, they could go in after the fact, put asphalt over the entire parking lot. And I'm not saying you would do this,
Right.
but they would have that capability, and then the stormwater management report and the system would not be properly calculated.
There was a finding of fact that the existing impervious is over 85%. That was a finding of fact from the zoning opinion.
And that was the existing nonconformity, was 85%.
Over. but we couldn't identify specifically how much above that.
Mr. Benner, can they do things with storm management within reason that could improve the water situation?
Yeah, they're providing.
And are they doing that?
Yeah, they are, and once again, it's just the size of those facilities would be determined on whether you classify that impervious that's there now as previously pervious, under an historical condition. We're saying it'd be better to do that because it just helps stormwater management then.
And so what would we have to recommend to be able to do that? What would we?
Sharon would say they'll comply with that requirement to classify that area as pervious for stormwater management considerations.
Well, I would make the argument that if there were no stormwater management, yes, we would take it all the way back to 60 and count all the rest as new, because we are providing stormwater management from scratch. But there's pre-existing stormwater management here as well. There are two seepage pits at the rear of the lot that we're improving and expanding upon as a part of this plan.
You came out and did a word.
You gotta speak into the microphones.
Right, yeah. We sent our soils expert out there to do a basin flood test in these facilities, and they had excellent infiltration results. So providing the stormwater management isn't an issue. It's a matter of at what line do we draw in the sand for the existing impervious versus what's there at the end of this project.
Well, and all I can tell you is we kind of felt that was the position we took in the letter. It's kind of a compromise between what's there now and what was the site in its natural condition. So it's kind of a compromise position, understanding that. So that's what we were looking for as part of our requirement, a compromise position. We're not asking you to go back to 1960 when it was just lawn or meadow, and at the same time, we're not saying that its existing condition now where it's all impervious is something that, we find acceptable for pre-development conditions. So it's kind of a compromise. I mean, I'm more than willing to work out that issue with Sharon in further talks, but I think that was kind of our position.
When we look at things like this, especially properties that are older there, we have to look at the water runoff with the way things are today so that the neighbors don't have tons of water coming off on their property when you're upgrading and doing things to this property. I understand it's been there forever, but we have to make sure that what you're doing isn't going to compromise the properties around it. And that's why Jesse's asking what he's asking, why it's important to us to make sure that everything is on the up and up, straight through, agreed upon, and making sure that the residents that live behind and next to, on either side, are all protected by what you're doing.
I understand that. In terms of the comment under zoning, because it does come up again under stormwater, I would put forth that we should put the actual impervious that's out there on the zoning plan, and Russ and I work out what we do for the calculations for the stormwater, saying this is considered pervious in the existing condition so that we can size the stormwater accordingly.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll work it out.
Okay.
Go
Is
ahead.
there, well, before we get to that, is there any concern that because they were granted the waiver from the zoning hearing board, they were granted the variance, is there concern that they can then go and asphalt the parking lot, and is that going to affect those calculations? Because they could, there's nothing to stop them at this point from doing that, and that's, I'm not saying that you have that plan,
once
but you
again, I
are
think-
legally allowed to do that.
I think there is. I think they can't do that.
And you're
Yes.
going to agree to this, that you're not going to do that, and
We have no intention of doing that. We're going to make it better than it is.
I believe the zoning,
Less impervious.
I think you couldn't get away with doing that.
60% standard.
it's just got to be clarified
I
for
know
the
it's a
record.
variance
So
to keep it
that-
the way it is.
I believe the variance was very
Doesn't fit.
specific to the amount of impervious that will be there when the project is done.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay.
Specific to.
Okay.
And that's, once again, that's why we kind of interpret this thing
Right.
two ways. One is the zoning, one is the
Right.
And
stormwater.
you're going to work together with the engineer, and we'll get all
Yes.
that situated
All right.
another time. Ed, Mr. Tuckmason?
Sorry, thank you. Just a similar, I do share some of the same concerns, but my question, Russ, is I'm doing a comparison with, this is a land development plan, right? So they're knocking down a greenhouse. What's the current square footage of the greenhouse now?
I don't have that number in front of me right now.
All right,
It's hard to gauge because there's the greenhouse, and then there are display areas up here that have plastic sheeting around them, so it becomes a very nebulous thing. There
okay.
is a slight increase in building area.
That's where I was getting at.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, how much increase were we talking about in terms of impervious space then? Because you're right, you're putting a greenhouse at 1,700 square feet, you're expanding the parking lot by a few parking spots. I mean, we already recognize the fact that this property is already over the limit impervious, so how much more are we building?
Well, the building,
And then is the greenhouse actually considered impervious? So you putting a
well,
pad site down
no,
on that?
greenhouse is considered impervious, and it is
Impervious.
considered building. The awning areas are not considered building, and they'll be put into a greenhouse. So that's, I want to, the porch areas that are over top of pavement aren't considered building. So the building is going from 1,932 square feet to 3,233. But that's all over existing impervious, so you're not increasing impervious with that, just building area.
Okay.
The impervious in the existing condition today is 13,152 square feet. At the end of this, it'll be 11,068 square feet.
So you're saying you're reducing it?
Yes.
Okay. Russ, are you somewhat in agreement to that?
Well, all that relates back to the stormwater
Right, and
calculations.
how we determine
And how we
that.
determine that, and how, once again, we'd like to request that we improve the stormwater calculations, even if you're looking at impervious against impervious. And that's why we kind of look critically at the situation where if you have, some years ago, you had this as pervious.
Yeah, okay.
And then that helps the stormwater situation.
Talking about that real quick too, since you brought it up, the stones that you're replacing, is that enough? Is there maybe an opportunity there to maybe put a French drain in or something to mitigate that even further?
This is, it's called an infiltration trench, where the stone is dug down by 2 feet,
Yep.
and it's built up with filter fabric so that it does not become choked with soil again, and it remains an impervious facility.
Understood. Thank you.
Now, there's 15 items under stormwater, and I don't see any calculations showing pre and post. Russ, help me out with this. I mean, that's just a shame having this many items under. I don't get it.
Once again, it's a little bit different than we typically see, where you have an open field and then you have some type of development coming in that, as far as controlling stormwater in these small amounts for a small property, I mean, typically, we're looking more at water quality issues and quantity issues by trying to infiltrate that, as opposed to looking at big numbers where a lot of times we'll show you, just an example, a 2-year storm has 15 cubic feet per second, they're reducing it down. It's on a much, much smaller scale that the numbers really don't mean a lot at that small scale. But you can see there's a number of comments, because a lot of these little details for these types of facilities is important, and that's why we provide comments on it.
Is there any of those issues that stand out to you that this board should know about?
No, and I think that those, unless Sharon says, well, we're not willing to comply with all these requirements, but if you're willing to comply with all the requirements, I don't think any of them are major issues.
No, there was nothing in here that we wouldn't comply with in coordination
So
with
you're
Russ.
okay with the will comply? Any of the board members have any questions on that?
Yeah, I have one more question. Russ, overall, so the stormwater management situation or infiltration at the property will be better off after this project is complete than it is now or was in its existing state before?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there are, just to clarify, and there's still waiver requests.
Yeah.
As far as those stormwater management comments. and we'll comply. I mean, Sharon, I don't know, you can go over the waiver requests, obviously.
Yes.
And we can talk about those.
I don't
Yeah.
want to belabor this, but I don't understand what you said, why there is not a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 50-year, and 100-year.
Because the differences are like tenths of a cubic foot per second.
So
Difference
why
between like
wouldn't it be down- why
0.5,
wouldn't it be written down-
0.6.
Okay, we have another development that I can pick it up and show it to you in a second, and it was identical. The pre and post flows,
Yeah.
cubic feet of water was identical, but that was in the report we had gotten.
And I think, once again, that's because of the majority of this being, to a certain degree, impervious, as opposed to an open field situation. We can provide, I mean, we can ask them, if you want to see those, we can provide those, but what I'm saying is, it's such a small amount, because we're talking about such a small lot,
Right,
that,
but is it a small amount in which direction? I mean, because a little bit in causing more can cause.
well,
grief for the neighbors.
you're absolutely right, and that's why we have these discussions about what was pervious and what was impervious as it relates to historical use of the property. And that's, once again, that's why we go back and look at these things to make sure we take that into consideration, even though right now, it's all impervious.
So you're confident that there will be no additional water flowing off that property after the development as there was prior to the development?
Yes, I am confident.
Okay?
And it'll be the same or maybe
Even better.
a little bit
It'll be-
less.
Or it'll even be better from a standpoint of less water, which is a better condition than it is now.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
yeah, just one major item in terms of the stormwater. There was, on the T&M letter number 12, will storm structures be replaced? So I'm assuming that's a will comply?
We're going to let her go through those.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. Yep,
Do
sure.
do you want me to go through all of these, or just
what
the...
the waivers are.
Just the waivers,
Yeah, I'm
okay.
good for it.
The first waiver was number 4 under stormwater, which is a requirement that you increase the runoff coefficients by 5% after development. Since the site is previously developed, that would apply to both pre and post.
What's your next, do you have more waivers?
Well, wait, Mr. Benner, can you,
And we have no objection to that.
okay.
Mr. Benner, if you have any problems, let us know after we're done with it.
The
I like
next one
hearing
would
him
be
lie.
number 8, which is a requirement for stormwater calculations during construction. Well, that's not going to look much different than it is now. So we are asking for a waiver of performing that extra step. And number 10, we requested a waiver to allow smaller than 18-inch pipes. We're using 12-inch pipes in the stormwater management system. To the extent it's needed, we are requesting a waiver.
Mr. Benner?
I know, Mr. Benner, on that last one, we've talked about this before, that sometimes that 18-inch is just oversized per the spec, you think?
And once again, in our comments states this, that this is not a conveyance system question where you're picking up stormwater in an inlet and directing it. It's just in a seepage bed where the water's flowing in and being stored in a 12-inch pipe. Their calculations essentially say that's all the volume we need is what's in a 12-inch pipe. So once again, we review that, we don't have any objections.
Okay.
As for number 12, which you brought up, he's referring to the 2 seepage pits at the back of the site. We acknowledge that the tops, the grates, need to be replaced. We would defer evaluation of the structures underneath those until we've excavated and see what shape they're in.
But you would agree that if there's repairs needed, you would do it?
If it's needed, we'll do it, yes.
Does that answer your question?
It does, yes.
Comprehensive?
Thank you.
So we're finished with stormwater management. You're okay with everything else, Mr. Benner?
Yes. You know, one thing I wanted to tell or request
Go
from
ahead.
Sharon, stormwater waivers, while we're talking about it. Item number 7, I believe, was in your waiver request letter. Look at that, use of the rationale method. Item number 7 on our letter, page 2, at the bottom.
Page 2, that's
Yeah,
under the
page
south.
2.
I was looking at 700,
I
under
got it.
stormwater.
No, I wanted to clarify, that waiver is not needed.
Oh, it's not?
It's
Okay.
not, because the way the ordinance is written in this particular requirement, it gives the township the choice between two methods if the site's under 200 acres. This is obviously like under 2 acres.
Yes.
And so we don't, and it basically says the township can decide what one's acceptable if it's under 200. We didn't provide a comment in here because we find that the rational method for this small of a property is acceptable to use for stormwater. You don't need a waiver of that requirement. So
In the
that number
past, we've
7
included it just
Yeah,
to
I
cover
get it.
all our bases.
I get it, but that's why we didn't comment on it
Okay.
in the letter. So number 7's not needed as far as the waiver request goes.
And there was one more waiver request, which was with regard to the traffic study. As I mentioned earlier, we're cleaning up the site and providing better parking facilities. We're not really anticipating a higher business because this has been in operation for some time.
I've heard that before. And when you have a business, you want as many people as you can get there. There's no parking on 13 and, you know.
We're getting more than that.
Yeah.
TPD didn't say much.
I will also note that your traffic safety unit noted they did not anticipate any traffic issues at this time.
Heard that before also. Okay, you have anything else at this moment? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak for or against? Start coming up. Hey, can you give us your name and address for the record?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can't hear you with the...
Hello? Take one of these off anyway. Boy, how's that? Is that any better? Sure?
A little bit better, yeah. Go ahead.
Just a little bit, but it's better?
Go ahead.
I can speak louder, I suppose. I am the neighbor on the southbound side of the 1203 Bristol Pike, the south side of the site your council is discussing. I didn't, unfortunately, I have tinnitus, which is brought on by anxiety, they tell me, and I kind of freaked out, to be honest with you. I couldn't hear what was going on. So I was wondering, along the property line, are there any changes to be made that affect me directly? Do I have to,
Well, Sharon, can you, Sharon, if
Can
you
you
wouldn't mind
answer
answering his
that
question,
The
yeah.
improvements that you're making along the
That mic,
property
you
line.
should be able to use that microphone too.
is there anything that, I'm sorry.
She can show you right there on the board if you.
You're talking this side of the site. What we're doing here, we're putting an infiltration trench here. We've also sunk the middle of it so that it will pull the water into it.
Sharon, can you just move that aside so that, to change the angle of it so he can get in there and not get hurt? Thank you.
We're also depressing the center of it so that it creates a swale. It'll pull the water in away from your property and keep it in here. Yes. Yes, we're going to make sure that we capture all this water here and send it back into these infiltration pits. Yes. Well, no, our water won't go onto yours. We're going to capture it all here because this is going to be depressed.
My old wood shop is in the back here, and still, I don't know what happens here. Is there any way I can get access to maintain my building, my property that's on that side of the building?
Access as to what?
Well, just painting, improving, whatever whatever you might do to your roof or whatever.
It means access to the information, you mean?
No, access so we can
So we can, you know,
physically
Physically go
get to the back along the property line. Is there going to be a fence installed on the property line?
There's an existing fence there.
Okay, and you're not going to touch that fence?
No.
Okay. So, sir, you'll have the same access that you have right now. That won't change.
I see, there's a, all right, the water that runs off of my property, it's a natural drainage to the new property, or
Sure.
this one. What, that water is now running in my shop, and my shop floor has sunken 2 to 5 inches, I guess, at a quick guess.
Because it's not flowing from your property as it's supposed to?
Look, part of it's my fault. Okay, I can do things to improve my site for sure. Okay, no doubt. But I was wondering, if the water that's generated from my driveway, which has been there for 60 years or something, or more, and I've been there that long, that was running over towards the fence and flowing, just, you know, migrating into the soil.
So the improvements are going to improve the flow from your property into the infiltration beds on the
Really?
new site.
Really? So the water from my driveway can run in there as well? Is that correct?
Is that following the natural elevation?
You better watch.
If it goes there now, it will still.
It goes there now.
Right.
Still go there, yes.
Right.
I wouldn't promise many improvements on this, but. if
No,
it's going
no, I'm
there
saying
now,
if it's
yeah.
going there now,
If it's going there
that
now,
water's gonna move.
It'll go move faster, yeah.
and they're not going to stop it from going off the
Right.
property, so.
It'll
Yeah.
go off your property better.
You're not going to stop it from going off the
We're not
road?
going to stop it from going from our property to yours.
I understand that. That's great. I don't think that was ever really an issue for me personally. My problem was getting the water from my driveway from running down into the shop. Running down into the shop, which is flooding the shop out, literally, and I have to deal with it every time it rains. As I said, half of this is probably my responsibility, but the other half prevents the runoff.
Well, they can't run any water off their property onto your property. So if there's water coming off their property onto your property, then there's an issue. Water that's running from your property back and flooding your shop, they wouldn't be responsible for that.
No, not any water that would run from my property into the shop would, of course not, be their responsibility. I was just wondering is there any place for runoff from the water that's on the driveway before it gets into the shop in the back? Unfortunately, they located the shop 70, 80 years ago at the lowest point in the property in the back.
I mean, I think if there's any improvements that have to be done on your property, you would be responsible for those, sir.
Well, that would be a change then. I'd have to change it, what you're saying. Okay. It's been that way for at least 70 years.
Well, this could only improve your situation. This will improve because no water will come off of their property. If there was before less water, there'll be no water coming from their property, adding to your problem.
Okay.
So if you have your own water issue on your property, then you're going to you can address that. You know, you can dig a French drain or get an engineer to suggest what to do. In front of your garage or your workshop, you could build some kind of French drain for yourself. But they're not responsible for fixing your
Okay.
water in your garage.
What about access to the side of my building? I believe I own some property on the side of the building. I didn't have a survey, but this survey here indicates there is property here.
So you want to come through their property to get your property? You want more access?
I just want to I just want to be able to continue access to my property. There's a fence that goes down the property line, and it bolts into the building, or is nailed up against the building, which is my building. All I want to be able to do is get access to that, should I need to. I realize that's a difficult situation.
Sharon, do you have any plans to touch or change the fence at all?
Have
The
I?
existing fence?
We'll address any encroachments. If it goes off the property line, we will fix that.
Okay.
And will you work together with this gentleman, see what issues are there, and see if it's something that can be solved? If it's something with your property, how can it be solved? I mean, it's hard without actually being at the property and seeing exactly what he's talking about.
Of course.
And Russ, maybe you guys can work together with them on that and find out what's going on. Our township engineer will have one of our inspectors come down and look at it also.
Everything that we've talked about, I just noted it, and we'll check it.
Am I right in this assumption that this gentleman is not asking if water would run off of the development property onto his, but is asking if, when this is done, will that change his flow from his property, and will it stop at his property, from his property, or will continue the natural flow that it has
That's essentially-
started?
Yes, that's 50% of the question, and the other thing was just if I could somehow, I know that's a tough one, what I'm about to ask you. If there's just some way I can get down along my property building,
Can you now get along the side of your building?
I'm sorry?
Can you now go along the side of your building between the fence and your building?
No, the tree fell through, the tree
Yeah.
fell through the fence. And
Okay,
part of
well,
the
they're
tree.
not the- yeah, they can
And
help with that.
the, broke the fence down, when the fence was replaced, it also blocked off the access to my, back of my property.
Okay, well, you can help with that, right? Yeah, they'll help you with that.
It's a tough one because it puts the fence so close to the building, I don't know how. Well,
But you're doing
nothing.
you're doing nothing that'll prevent the natural flow from water from his property to your property, right?
No.
As a matter of fact, if you're making your pit lower, it should
help.
It should
actually help
facilitate
it.
drainage.
It should help it drain better, right?
Yeah,
Right, so it should be better,
Oh,
actually.
if it's better, it's better. And just as long as, it would be nice, I don't know how you can do this, but it'd be nice if there's some way I could just edge along my building.
Yeah, they're gonna help you with that.
Without-
They're gonna try to do that.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I don't want something from him, and I don't want some, Mr. Richardson, I don't want anything from him. It's just the unfortunateness of, I never got a survey because I was told by the survey people it was $2,700 when Mr. Richardson already had a survey. Just, all I was concerned about was the back, just so I could get along there and just do some.
They agreed to work with you, and we're going to have our inspector go down and work together, so everybody's on the same page and you know exactly what you can
That'd be
do.
great. Now, my place is a disaster, I know that. I'm getting old. Maybe too old. But I kind of like,
It'll
we
clean
need
it up.
hospitals. My significant other of 40 years needs a lot of hospital attention. And I hate to try to sell, it's just too much to sell.
Understood. Everybody's going to work together with you on this to try and solve the issues you have.
I have a wood shop with equipment that goes back, some of which goes back to 1905. Okay, it's cast right into the side. These are big pieces of equipment.
Right.
And, it's just such an undaunting task. All they want to do is keep up. And I was cutting the lawn all through the night last night, so in case you guys would come over and take a look.
Okay, so they'll all work together with you.
Yeah, I just want to represent
Doesn't encroach on
to
him.
council
I
that
don't want to encroach.
this gentleman was at the zoning board as well, and we went through practically the same issue. So we're more than happy to work with him. I know he gets along with Mr. Richardson.
It's already been agreed upon, and our people are going to go down
Right.
there too. and
Okay.
make sure it's done.
Taken care of.
Yeah, do you have his name and address?
Yeah, everything's right on the.
Yeah, okay.
One question, if I may, can you hear me?
Yes.
Do I have to, is this going to cost me any out-of-money expenses for what you're?
No.
Okay. Whew.
Thank you. No problem. Anyone else want to come forward? If we have nothing, I'm going to close the public portion. Do we have any other questions from the board?
I have one more question. The traffic planning design letter noted that for the truck turning templates, the fire truck is not able to turn around on the site. I understand it's an existing issue. And I just want to confirm if this is okay, Russ, the fact that It looks like they can go in and then just back right back out on the pike.
And I think the fire marshal or the fire department's review letter didn't comment on anything.
Yeah.
They said it was fine.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
No, I was just turning it around to show we have the truck turning movements here with us.
Right, and I had seen that on the plan. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
from engineering perspective and safety that that's still acceptable.
It's the same condition that's there now. It is a one-story building. The need for a ladder truck would be minimal.
Hope so.
Mr.
Or
Tucker?
non-existent.
Yeah, just the impact fee. How's that going to be determined? Is that going to be applicable here?
He said it is the letter, but it's, well, it will be necessary once the
Yeah.
council decides to confirm with the site, they'll calculate.
Can't be much.
Okay.
It is, it's part of it. It's
Thank you.
noted in the header.
Yeah, I'm assuming the applicant's in agreement to any impact fee that would be assessed.
Are you in agreement of that? Any impact fee that's,
The impact fee?
yes.
Yeah, it's on the traffic and planning design letter. It says an impact fee was necessary for this site. It will be completed once the final building size is confirmed for the site.
Yes.
So, is that a yes or a no? I see the discussion back and forth, but no yes or
Well,
no.
I'm trying to get a yes. He said, do we know what it is?
We don't know what it is yet.
It's determined by the impact.
I'm sure
fee,
it's
the
not going to
formula.
be a gigantic number, it's only a small area.
Right.
No, it can't be
But-
much at all.
Based on that, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And then one other thing, Mr. President, on the TPD letter right below that, the existing sidewalk should be redone. I'm not exactly sure what is needed there, but is that also going to?
It's a standard driveway depression.
Yeah, he needs, and I think what he's referencing is.
DW.
DWS on
Yeah,
either
yeah.
side. We can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? If not, a motion would be in order.
I'll put a motion on the board, on the floor, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the land development minor in nature for Raymond Richardson, RR Produce and Garden Center at 1215 Bristol Pike. The tax map parcel is 02-029-422. This will be based upon the reference letter of T&M dated April 21st, 2021. All the zoning issues have been addressed. When it comes to the section D, the applicant will comply with 1, 2, 3, and this is chapter 201, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, the applicant will give the applicant a waiver on number 5. And they will agree to section A of number 5 and B, which is relative to the utility service lines and the storm report reference to 2 existing seepage pits. The applicant will also comply with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'd ask that we grant a waiver for number 12. That's for the 3 feet of the property line. And the applicant will also agree to 12, number 1 and number 2, which is relative to the grading planning stated no encroachment, as well as the prior to construction, the property line must be staked and constructed. The applicant will also agree to a payment in lieu of relative to our township engineer and his agreement with the developer, depending on how many trees they're going to be putting in, and whether it be a payment to the township or them supplying trees to our tree bank. Okay. The applicant will also comply with section 14, 15, 16, 17, and I'd ask that we would grant a waiver for number 18, as well as number 19 and 20. 21, as well as 22, should be a waiver from the council. And then-
I think 22 is a will comply. Will show on plan.
22 is a comply?
Yeah, he has it
Yes.
waiting already.
Okay.
They need to show it on the plan, though.
Okay. And then we have 23, 24, and 25 would also be in compliance. Relative to the stormwater management, Section E, we have a waiver request of number 4. Number 8, number 10, number 12. And the applicant will also, under our township traffic engineer, comply with the request of our township engineer, traffic engineer. I'm looking at that with relative to the impact fee to be determined, and being in compliance with PennDOT and any agreement that has to be controlled by PennDOT, and the access and entrance and egress to the facility. That would be my motion, and Mr. Pazzo, if you want to add something to it, it's my pleasure.
Mr. Kisselback, before Mr. Pizzo goes, all other comments in section E would be a will comply, correct?
Section E?
Which is the stormwater management.
Yeah, all of them.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, I just
That's
listed
okay.
the waivers, and the others are in compliance, that's correct.
And was 12 a waiver, or was 12 a will comply? Because I'm going to wrote it down.
Section E.
Stormwater.
I have it,
That's a will comply.
it is a will comply?
Yeah. 12 was.
But if you could add the storm structures if they're in
I think
disrepair.
they changed their mind on it.
All right, and what did you say, Eddie?
If you could add if they're in disrepair, that the applicant had agreed to repair them.
All right, so if they, okay, exactly, I remember that now. If repairs need to be done relative to our township engineer presenting that to the applicant, they will repair them,
Yes.
bring it up to date, okay. That's what I have.
Mr. Pizzo?
Now, I believe Mr. Kisselback's motion reflects most of the comments that I noted throughout the hearing. As a general statement, all of the items for which there are waivers, such waivers are granted contingent upon the fact that the applicant will comply with the requirements of the township engineer regarding all of those items.
Mr. Pizzo, and is the fact that they agreed that they would pay the impact fee and make a change to the sidewalk, making it DWS on either side, does that have to be part of the motion?
Mr. Kisselback's motion, I believe,
unanimous.
requires them
Okay.
to comply with all of the comments in the
Okay.
TPD review letter, so that would include all of those. By statute, they're required to pay an impact fee regardless of whether they agree or not, but it's always nice to have them
Mr. President, I'll second.
indicate on the
Nice that you know
record
about
that
that, right?
they know they're required to pay it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it, Mr. President.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lady.
I almost seem like it was an issue.
Looking forward to some produce. Some people could walk there, actually.
Okay, number 7 on the agenda, consideration of a resolution for PennDOT traffic maintenance agreement. Joe, are you handling that, or Mr. Benner? Yeah,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Polari. Item number 7 is a resolution regarding PennDOT's standard, our traffic signal maintenance agreement with PennDOT. PennDOT recently changed some aspects of its traffic signal maintenance agreement with the township, a document which is about this thick, which is why we didn't attach it to the resolution and save a few of those trees that the prior applicant will be donating to the township. As is standard operating procedure for PennDOT, they've asked us to adopt a resolution adopting the updated and modified version of the traffic signal maintenance agreement as well as authorizing any future modifications to the traffic signal agreement to be submitted and signed by the mayor, the director of administration, and/or the township finance manager as applicable. Those changes to any traffic signal intersection, the typical permit application revisions will still come in front of you. This is just the standard agreement for the operation of those signals on a, if you will, day-to-day basis. So this is the standard form resolution that we've been asked to adopt by PennDOT. It is in a form acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening.
Is there anything substantive in that agreement that we need to be aware of, since it's this thick and we don't have a copy
Well,
of
if
it?
you tell PennDOT no, you're not going to get the
No,
meeting.
that's
so-
not what I asked. That's not what I asked. I just want to know what's in it.
No more or less substantive than it was before you
Okay.
adopted this resolution.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Pizzo.
Certainly.
There's no other questions, a motion would be in order.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution for PennDOT traffic maintenance agreement as presented.
Do we have a
I'll second
second?
it.
We have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 8 on the agenda, consideration of a resolution for a DCED grant in the amount of $250,000 for the Greenways Trail and Recreation Program. Are you handling that one, Mr. Pizzo?
Certainly, yes. So as part of the township's acquisition of the former UGH trifecta property, the township finds itself eligible to apply for a grant through the Commonwealth Greenways Trails and Recreation Program. The township intends to apply for a $250,000 grant. In order to submit the application, a resolution of council is required authorizing the submission of the application, as well as designating the mayor, Mr. Samori, and Mr. Tchaikovsky as applicable to execute any and all documents and agreements between the township and the Commonwealth Financing Agency that would pertain to that grant, both in terms of the submission of the grant and any documents that might come down the road if, in fact, the Commonwealth approves our application and gives the township that $250,000 grant. This is the form of resolution that the Commonwealth has asked us to adopt. It is in a form acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening.
Gentlemen,
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented, and I just want to add that I think it's great. Not only did we acquire the property, but now there's a bunch of grant opportunities out there to cover some of the costs. Fingers crossed that we get some of these approved.
My only point before we approve this, apparently, we're going to approve it, but if we get this kind of money from the trail, we had talked about maybe making a perimeter path around it so other people can use it besides,
Just for that
besides soccer, besides people playing soccer, like, general residents, senior citizens, and people with toddlers could walk around.
this money would go towards that, towards those
To make that
improvements.
trail around the perimeter if we could, to have more people, more residents have access to using the property.
Yeah,
Just to further Mr. Knoll's point, I mean, at some point, are we going to have a discussion in terms of what the plans are going to look like for that property?
On this
Yeah,
particular
yes.
issue on the trails, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know we were in some preliminary discussion as far as what we could possibly do with that property, but, okay, all right, so you'll include us in terms of what we're looking at.
Just like we're going along, giving
Yep.
how much money we're spending.
Thank you.
Did you make a motion to approve?
You did.
do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Vote aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 9 on the agenda, consideration of an escrow release for Republic First Bank, release number 2, 2734 Street Road, tax parcel 2-37-29 and 30 and 31, the amount of $21,700. Mr. Benner.
Yeah, it should be noted, we have this as escrow release number 2. It's actually going to be the final escrow release for this particular project. There are no public improvements that were associated with the township's escrow on this, so there's no maintenance requirement. And I believe this does also include the release, yes, of the 10% contingency. So Quentin has inspected the property, has reviewed the numbers, and we're recommending the release of the $21,700 amount.
Okay, your pleasure, gentlemen.
So moved.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. All right, number 10 on the agenda, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Thank you. It's already, Joe.
Joe Conley, 568 Bristol Pike. I got a question about the stormwater management. Does that include everybody in the township, or is that just certain people? That you're not allowed to run water on somebody else's land?
What the law is, Mr. Connolly, is when someone's in front of us for land development, the amount of water that runs off of their property post-development cannot exceed the amount of water that runs off of their property pre-development. So the stormwater management ordinances of the township don't per se say that water can't flow from one property to another. In fact, in many cases, stormwater management facilities are designed for stormwater to flow from one property to another. But what the law requires, and what happened in the earlier hearing and the discussion that the council had, was that, again, when that particular applicant, R&R Produce, is done doing whatever they're doing in terms of construction on their property, the amount of stormwater that leaves their property today is the benchmark, and when the construction's done, the amount of stormwater that leaves their property has to be either the same or less.
I'm getting flooded right now. I'm taking 100% of his water. He blacktopped in front of his building 20 inches to put a drive-through in. His stormwater pit is on my property. I have my tax map certified by Doylestown. That pile of dirt is on my property. The building is on my property. His sign is on my property. I spent over $200,000 so far, hiring 13 land surveyors. By law, they're supposed to have a code of ethics. Misconduct law. Every one of them marked my property wrong. I also have a copy here of a subdivision plan that Bob Ollender, previous owner, used to own both properties. After he put this illegal addition on the greenhouse, used to be on my property, he tried to get it subdivided in '84, and the township rejected him. Said there wasn't enough room in between the buildings. This stands today. I cannot sell my property right now. I called every real estate company. Not one real estate company will list my property. What do you suggest I do? I go to Doylestown. I hired 4 attorneys. They all work with the judges up there in that kangaroo court system up there. I just had $7,000 worth of fines the township gave me a few months back. They recently dropped the fines, but it cost me $20,000 to fight them bogus fines that they gave me, saying I built a wall at the Lafayette Gardens Apartments that I did not build. But it was a $1,000 fine that I got for building that wall that I didn't build. And a $1,000 fine for the wall not having a railing. The wall never had a railing on it. $1,000 fine for erosion. If I would show you pictures of water coming through my property, it's eroding my property. I can ride a boat through my property. I'm getting 100% of his water. Did anybody check his map? Did Quentin check his map? You know, when you go to land development, you have to go to land development. When I tried to sod the corner of my property, Quentin said I have to go to land development. Well, he put 20-some inches of blacktop in front of his building to get the car high enough. Is that fair? That I'm getting all his water and I'm getting fined? I got blood, my blood pressure's boiling. 7 years, I come home from work. I'm raising a family by myself, 3 boys. Okay? I come home last batch with $7,000. Is that fair? It's not fair. I'm trying to get out of Bensalem right now. I can't stand this township. Cannot stand it here. What do you suggest I do? The dirt pile is supposed to be removed by the end of July. Is that going to happen? I mean, they keep on postponing it. I've been here for 7 years. I mean, you know, come on. And every time you invoke my name, everybody's eyeballs roll. You know, this is not right. I am getting, this is tough. You know, what do you want me to do here? Anybody got a suggestion? I have my tax map certified from Doylestown. If you look here, right here, the line runs right through his building that Bob Owner built illegally. And after the fact, he tried to get it subdivided. They turned it down. I got the letter from '84. And then in 1991, Mr. Goldman gave him permission to occupy the building because he owned both properties. Then there was a sale, and I bought the property. But he never told me. The worst thing I ever did, I hired Joe Mixner. And Joe Mixner knew all about this. The worst land surveyor I could have hired is Joe Mixner because he was working with the township. So he wasn't honest with me. He should have told me the line goes through this building, but he covered it up. And it's being covered up right now. I cannot get it out to survey. The only body will give me a boundary survey. Stoughton Caldwell charged me $7,500 for a survey, a boundary survey. I called him a month or so later. I said, hey, I was wondering if you guys could do an out to survey. They didn't know it was me. Oh yeah, that's the survey you want, sir. That's the one you want. I went over there 90 miles an hour. I said, hey, I'm the guy who just called you. You gave me the survey, $7,500. I need this to be out to certified. They all started looking at each other, the two Stout brothers and the mother. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Sir, that's going to be a lot more money. Well, how much more money are you talking? Well, you're talking like $7,000, $7,500. I pulled out $10,000 cash. I shot to be $10,000 cash. I'll pay you up front. They all started looking at each other again, right? Wanted to put this on a contract. I said, okay. I get home 10 minutes later. They're not interested in doing it for me. Right? Land surveyors, professionals, attorneys, 4 attorneys I hired. So far, it cost me over $200,000. I spent $7,000 putting the article in the paper. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read any of that. You know, I put a sign on my front lawn, Bensalem Township is stealing my land. If you guys accused me of doing something, I knew I was innocent, I would sue you. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm hoping somebody sues me, take me to court. I'm calling you thieves. This is not right. This is totally not right what's going on here. I've been dealing with this for 7 years. And the last batch of fines was really got me. If you put that blood pressure thing on me right now, I would be up to here. This is not right. You're weaponizing the justice system against me. In the last 7 years, I've been putting up with fines. And I'm not going to put up with it no more. I want to know when the dirt pile is going to get off my land that the township gave him permission to do and the DEP gave him permission to put there. And look at this. He blacktopped all this area without going to land development. How can you do that? Because you know somebody? The guy has a lot of money? I don't know. What is it? I would like to know when the dirt pile is going to be removed off of my property. And he's going to stop running his water on my property. Can anybody give me an idea? I know they said July, at the end of July, it was going to be done. Is it going to be another 3 months from now, or another year, 2 years? Is there any idea when the dirt pile? I look out my window, the dirt pile's higher than my house. It's illegal.
Can you let Mr. Pizzo answer your question, please, Mr. Connolly?
As Mr. Connolly properly indicated, he has been told, as the property owner has been told, that the dirt pile needs to be removed by the end of July. As all of you were provided with a memo this evening from the Director of Building and Planning, at this point in time, the property owner has submitted the necessary land alteration permit to the township. He's also submitted the necessary applications to the County Conservation District. Because of the size and scope of the project, County Conservation District is involved, and their approval is necessary for the disturbance of this amount of soil. County also needs to know where this amount of soil is going to be relocated to. So the applicant is required to provide all of that information to the county, which they have. The County Conservation District is at this point processing that application, and as soon as that permit issues, we've been advised that Mr. Popley is ready to have the dirt removed from the site. So at this
That'll be
point,
done by July, the end of July?
that is, unless for some reason the county takes several weeks to issue the permit, it otherwise should be accomplished by the end of July.
Because I got a new attorney, and I'll tell you where this is going. This is going to go to federal court, because I can't go to Doylestown because you guys are all hooked up. It's not like what's going on here. It's unfair. Very, very unfair.
Okay, Mr. Conley, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
what can I do here?
Go to the Attorney General.
That's why I've been trying, believe me. I spent over $200,000. It's pretty sad, ain't it?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I know you don't want to hear me. I know that. But I'll be back next meeting, believe me. I'll be back every meeting.
Is there anyone else in the audience that has any public comment? Seeing no one come forward, public comment is closed.
Wait, no. Mr. President.
How you doing?
Hello. Hello, everybody. My name's Michael Nush. I'm at 143 Tatham Road, Bensalem, Belmont Ridge Development. Short and sweet. Some of the board members are aware already, and I think the mayor's aware. Been dealing with a dumpster issue, the dumpster banging, for the past, I'd say, over a year now. Some of the stores, it's been rectified, some hasn't. It continues, and like, I don't really have a problem if it's 6 in the morning, 6:30, even 5:30, but 4 in the morning, repetitively from PennDOT, it just, I can't have that. And some of my neighbors that live there, they hear it too. It's just, and it's been continuing. Started with the CVS, that got rectified with a little help from some of the board members and the mayor. That was taken care of. That was Republic, and now it seems like Waste Management doesn't really care. They've been caught out there by me and a couple other people. Like I said, 4 in the morning, and the sound travels. There's no, it's very easily heard. And I think something needs to be done about it.
Where are they picking up the?
If you don't mind, I can fill in. So
Yeah, sure.
I have some knowledge on it. There is 2 locations up by Neshaminy Mall. The Neshaminy Plex, whatever that shopping center is called, up there on Neshaminy Boulevard. The other location is behind the LA Fitness, and there's dumpsters that are behind there. And we're seeing trucks come through there anywhere between 4 and 6 a.m. And I can say that I was out with Mr. Nush. I did witness it. I saw it. I have been communicating with the mayor and as well as the mayor's administrative assistant, trying to resolve the issue. Furthermore, the problem, the challenge that we're running into is the fact that really the only teeth that we have inside of our ordinance is the fact that we have to go after them for the noise ordinance. And we've gotten Director Horan involved as well. And I just most recently spoke to him. He's going to put patrols out there. However, again, the challenge is the fact that we have to then rely on a police officer having something to measure the noise at this point. So with that said, Mayor, I did some, hang on a sec, I did some research, and we know that this isn't the first time we've seen it across the township. We saw it behind the AC Moore. So I did some research. Neighborhoods around Chicago, Tampa, there was another one here. I don't know exactly where this was, but in any case, so it's a problem that we see across the country. And what I did is I did some research in terms of how can we try to resolve it on a more permanent basis. And I will tell you this, that Director Horan actually had suggested trying to put something else in our township code to be able to cite them even further. So my suggestion, Mayor, and this is going to be specifically under Chapter 107, Garbage, Rubbish, and Refuse, Article 1, Solid Waste Management. And what it appears, the code amongst these townships and cities that I've researched, there was two options. One was either just altogether banning the pickup of commercial waste, or two, limiting the commercial waste haulers from emptying dumpsters that are within a certain distance of a residential neighborhood or residence. And that's what I would propose and suggest to the mayor and to this board this evening, that we ask and direct the solicitor just to look at those particular options on amending our ordinance to at least put some more teeth into the fact that we can go after these waste haulers.
Do you mean during
No.
a certain time?
Yeah, yep, correct.
Not at all?
It's just kinda
I'm
like
sorry,
between-
sorry,
Not at all.
yeah, it would
It's
be
what you said was
overnight
not
Sorry, no, good point. It would be between 8 PM and 8 PM and 7 AM. Yep, completely
8 PM
ban it
to
altogether.
7 AM.
8 PM, yes. Yep.
That's somewhat reasonable.
Yeah, it's not new, we have been looking for it. Remember, we put a police car, we parked it right in front of the trash. I'm sorry. Remember, we actually put a police car in front of the trash cans and that had stopped it. Now, there's a new waste is picking up now?
Yeah,
instead of-
the other challenge is, and what Dawn had said, is, hey, look, the problem is, and she's right, we don't, there's multiple waste haulers that are particularly behind that shopping center over there at the Chamonixplex. So you're talking Republic, Waste Management, so that was a matter of who's doing it first, and then trying to go after them.
Well, I think it's a good idea to look at the ordinance. Maybe there's something that we can do about that and change it into hours of when
Yep.
they can pick up. They
Because
actually
it
have
happens
hours
throughout
now.
it happens throughout the township.
It
I mean,
does.
the 7-Eleven up the street from my house at 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning, you can hear them, and there's echoes because,
But
there's nothing
our
going on.
ordinance does have hours. You can't pick up the commercial
I
trash
looked.
before 7 AM.
It doesn't appear as if it was specific to that nature. There's a noise ordinance,
Our
yes.
ordinance says that, right?
I just want to add, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I tried to handle this on my own a little bit, and I got nowhere. Well, actually, just got a lot of lip service, meaning with CBS, I called the district manager, went through him. Dawn was, very helpful, even the mayor, and I think it was finally handled because they did get a citation, and it was supposed to go to court. However, with the COVID and stuff, it never went to court. They just paid the fine. But CBS did take the initiative of having it locked up. So they put a gate around and have it locked up. Not only for that, but because of a lot of the homeless going through the dumpster diving, because there's, that was another issue. So they did take the initiative of doing something about it. The other thing too is it's like me and Ed have been back there. There's multiple haulers, LAC, Tenari, Waste Management. Some of them are on board and don't pick up, because they respect the ordinance and they realize that people like me and Ed, when we told the guy from, Waste Management, he's like, well, where do you live? And I'm like, I live right over there. And there's no sound barrier or anything, so the sound just travels. And if I get, I work at a hospital. If I get woken up at 3 in the morning, I'm done. And then, like I said, it's repetitive because it's the same hauler. It's Friday.
You're going from one store to the next, to the
Yeah,
next, to the next.
3:55 it happened. It sounded like a shotgun. Boom, 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 and I'm like,
It's loud.
look at the clock, 3:55, and now I'm awake.
Yeah.
1 minute later, it happens again because you just went to the next dumpster, and then they left. Then it happened again at 5, I think it was like 5:20. And that was more of a closer proximity, and now I know. Don't ask me why, but I'm good with the sound. So I know it was PennDOT the first time, and then probably Longhorn back there where LA Fitness at 5:20, because it was more of a direct, louder sound.
Yeah. And the
I
other,
don't feel like waking up on
And the
Friday,
other-
spending my...
I don't blame you, sir, and Mr. Knowles is right, you
4 in
shouldn't
the
have to.
morning, and then having Ed there with me, and then I was like, am I supposed to call 911? Yeah, I know I can, but I work at a hospital. I know it's an emergency, and I'm like, this isn't an emergency, but I think, I just don't want anything bad to happen.
We're in agreement with you and what Ed suggested, with strengthening that ordinance so that they can't do that, because they are going to get fines. it'll stop eventually, they'll get tired of paying the fines. But I think that we can be a lot stricter on it to make sure that we can protect you. 7-Eleven won't bang mine at the top of my street and that kind of stuff, so I think.
Mr. President, just one thing, we do have an ordinance.
I do, I know.
And if they're picking up trash at 3, 4, 5, 6, they're not allowed, right now.
I know, Mayor, but I've called them, and you know what they tell me? I said, listen, there's an ordinance. They're like, no, there's not. And I'm talking to somebody at Waste Management
Well,
from
we
the
have to
district
do a
level.
better job of finding them and stopping them. I mean, how about if we made it 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock? And these characters are still going to do the same thing. We have to make some kind of enforcement, because no commercial is supposed to be picked up in this township before 7.
Can we
It's
confirm that?
happening. I'm telling you it's happening, and here's the other challenge, is that
I
Director
know it's
Horan,
happening.
Director Horan said that they enforced the noise ordinance, and the problem is that, and he had indicated that they simply just pay the fine, and then they go their merry way, and they continue to do it.
And my point is, they're breaking the law right now.
Yep.
And we have an enforcement problem. So if you made it 8 or 9 or 10, they're still going to break the law if we don't enforce it. I think we have an enforcement problem right now, as we speak here tonight.
I just don't
Because
know.
you can't pick up trash before 7 a.m.
Well, let's find out what the ordinance says, and then Mr. Pizzo can research this and let us know. Either we have to make the fines more stiff, so they feel a
Well,
little
that's
bit
the
more.
point. We have to do
And enforce it.
enforcement.
And enforce it. We have to find out what they are
We have
first.
to
I don't
do
know.
enforcement. We're going to have to put extra police out there at that time in the morning and catch them.
Mayor,
and
what-
fine them and stick with it. And the judges had to stick with it, not just give them a slap on the hand and let them go.
And if they have a second offense, maybe we can put in second, third offenses, just keep increasing the fine.
Mayor, I
feel
think we
I'm telling you,
should.
they're getting away with murder right now.
I think we should send out a certified
them to
letter
come out for
with the
public
ordinance
record?
saying what it is,
Beyond
then they have no
record?
grounds to stand on it. So I think it's something we should consider and take a look at.
Thanks for coming out.
Can you, all right, can we at least, Mr. Pizzo, can you at least look to ensure?
We're going to look into
Okay.
what you're talking about,
Great,
but
thank
my
you.
problem is that right now, we're not enforcing the ordinance we have.
I understand that, and I'll tell you, Director Rand was more than happy to enforce it. And
Absolutely.
He did say that he was going to enforce it
And
this
we're
week.
going to look at making it tighter, however we
Correct.
can do it,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll find out whether it's shifted or not.
As Mr. Nush indicated, the problem has started over the course of the last year, and as most of you are aware, as I assume most of the public is aware, most of the trash hauling companies right now and throughout the pandemic have had, as is true of many businesses, work shortages. That they have fewer drivers, they have fewer workers, and so one of the things that they've been doing is extending the day of the people that they have, particularly in the area of commercial pickups. So whereas before, the commercial pickup at CVS or at the, whatever business it might be, might have been taking place at 7 or 6, that truck's now on the road hours earlier and is making these pickups earlier. That's not a defense, but it's an explanation as to why this is happening more now than it was in the past. The mayor is correct, that what is happening now isn't permitted under our ordinances. So it is very much an enforcement process that the township has already had police out there at the areas where we know there are problems to address the drivers as they're there. If we need to take further steps, now that this has been brought to light even to a greater degree, and again, to all the world, to the extent there are problems, you don't need to wait a month for a council meeting to make the township aware of it. The mayor's office is open
Well, we
5
know.
days
We
a
did
week.
know
No,
that we reached
but
out.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, we know.
in general, you don't need to put up with a problem for a month until the next council meeting to come out and, by all means, make the township administration aware as soon as the problem arises, and we can address it that much quicker. But we'll take a look at what we can do to beef up the ordinances, and we'll take a look at what we can do to become even more aggressive with citing these
Enforcement.
haulers and putting them all on notice that this is what we're going to be doing.
Thank
Sir,
you.
your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Ernesto Amade. I live at 145 Tatham Road, Mr. Nush's neighbor. I just came here to support, or to be a witness, I guess, as to what's been happening. I know that I was waking up early. I wake up early, but I don't want to wake up that early until I figured out what it was, and that's what it was. And so it sounds like there's no argument here. Everybody seems to agree that there's a problem, and it looks like the township's going to try to do something about it. So
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Sir?
My name's Larry Haley, 153 Tatham Road. And the front of my bedroom, I hear the CVS when my windows are open. I don't hear it when summer, and I run in my air. But, you know, I've heard it too. Am I a light sleeper like Mike? No, I can go back to sleep. But on occasion, the regular trash, our trash companies for our regular trash, I've seen them come in 5 in the morning, just to our regular, and that's kind of loud.
Oh.
How I know, I forgot to put the trash out. Wakes me right up, you know? But not all the time, but on occasion.
But what we're looking at now, we'll look at that also, because they shouldn't be picking up before 7 a.m. either. I believe that's in the ordinance, there's like 7 a.m., that they can't pick up trash before then, I'm pretty sure. But
Yeah.
we'll look at that
Yeah, we'll have to
along
look
with
at
what
all
we're doing
the
for the commercial.
trash pickup ordinances.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just make one other?
Let me see if there's anybody else.
Sure.
Is there anyone else would like to come forward with public comment? Seeing no one, did you want to come up? Sure? I know who it is. Okay, public comment is closed. Ed, you said you had something else?
Yeah, just one other point on that is that possibly, maybe even we could change the code to require in future land development plans where they're enclosing those dumpsters, and make it a requirement as part of land development and ask for a waiver.
We do
Is it in there? Okay.
require trash enclosures for land
All right,
development.
thank you.
But
For
some of them might get a
commercial,
waiver,
for
you have to
non-residential
watch it.
ones, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
number 11, other port personnel. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything, sir?
Yes, Mr. President, I was just thinking of all the stuff you have here, why don't you give this, or keep it for the next meeting? There's a lot of paperwork here on that tower. I'd hate to.
We put it back, yeah, we put it back in our packet.
Or give it back to Debbie. Really, that's a lot of stuff for us
Yeah.
to copy. So,
I put mine back in the packet and give it, Debbie has
Yeah.
it for the next meeting.
no, that's,
Yep.
and just today was Flag Day. I don't know how many people were flying their flags, but we're all very patriotic here, and we acknowledge that. And certainly, I have a flag all over the place. Every place that I own has flags flying because I really believe in our country and everything that's going on. And it's good to be back live and in person to see everybody again. Hopefully, this thing is over. I just saw tonight where the one strain that's out there now, another company claims that they have the serum now that takes on strains. So I don't know what to tell everybody what we're going to do with this pandemic, but hopefully it's over and we can continue to do this. It's so great to see everyone. I have people in the audience to see different new people once in a while. Jeez, it's been terrible. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Mr. Pizzo, you
I'm
have any-
sure I forgot a lot of stuff. The concerts are on, Wednesday night concert, yeah. So get out there on Wednesday night. By the way, we were there last week, and I did something, if you remember. I asked, how many people from Bensalem? Did you see how many few? I did that personally. I turned around and say, watch this, right? I don't understand why our people in Bensalem don't come out to these concerts. I really don't. I don't get it. I don't know how many people were there last week, but
There were a lot of people.
a lot of people, and I'll bet you, would you guys agree with me, 20 people maybe from Bensalem?
No, it was more than that.
More?
Half and half.
Was there?
But it's probably a little more than half was louder at least, that were not from
Anyway,
Bensalem.
it's a great venue out there for Bensalem. It's a beautiful park. Please come out to the community here and support it. And I understand they got great bands this year, so after a year of nothing, let's at least celebrate. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Pizzo, you have anything?
Other than happy to see all of you back here in the council chamber with me, and happy not to have to be sitting in front of all those computer screens anymore. So welcome back, and otherwise have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Salone?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Shall I pass it out?
I wanted to ask,
All right, before you go, Jess, I'm going to pass this out to you because it was another thing I wanted to bring up on Newcastle down there. So here's a memo. They were,
The old Andalusia supply, there were some questions at the last council meeting. The mayor had Ken go down, take some pictures. You'll see the site is cleaned up.
I apologize, I should have said that earlier.
Andalusia supply is out of there. All of the building supply products have been removed from the site. There are still a few storage containers down there that should be removed prior to the end of the month.
They're
But,
selling, they're for sale.
Exactly. But we did want to make you aware, because that was a question and a comment at your last council meeting.
Russ, there's one for you. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I apologize, I had that here and I didn't have it.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Sloan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask, some residents have been reaching out to me requesting an update on the repair of the bridge in Laconia Park.
Yes. That is out on bid. There's 3 of the bridges being out on bid at one time. There's 2 at the golf course. And we're hopeful we get a better bid putting all 3 out together. Don't shake your head. You're the guy that's been doing it. Come up and tell him quick.
See, I get you up here one way or the other.
He's in charge of that.
I think the residents are getting a little anxious at this
Yes,
point. That
and,
bridge has been
as
out for
I
about a
am.
year now.
Yeah, as we are.
Yeah, so there's actually four bridges being done.
4 bridges.
Yeah, we got 3 at the golf course, 1 at the Laconia Park, and as the mayor said, as soon as that gets done and get everything in, Laconia's priority to get that replaced
Okay,
first.
great. And when do you expect to have those bids in? Is there a request by date?
I don't know the bid date. I know it's the end of this month, I believe.
You know, we haven't seen each other so long. There's a lot of stuff I could bring you up to date on, but
Might be actually July 6th, I believe.
Okay.
I have to double check.
But you're making Laconia first.
Yeah, so what we're going is, when we have the pre-construction with the contractor, we'll focus on Laconia first.
Okay, great.
Now, do understand that bids have to come in, they have to be, they
Well
have to be
agreed.
reviewed, they have to be awarded, the contractors have to be qualified, there has to be a pre-construction meeting, so all those things have to happen before
well aware, Mr.
construction
Pizzo.
starts.
I don't want to keep this, but while I have you up here, you could back me up with this. We have we gave a bid out on Unionville Road for the drainage there that goes down to, what's the road where we have all the problems?
Woodbine.
In front of the golf course.
Woodbine.
Woodbine. Well, we're putting a new pipe in along Unionville Road. That bid has been rewarded 2 months ago?
I'm not sure of the date. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. But PennDOT, it's a PennDOT highway.
Right.
They keep coming back, we need this, and I'm saying, I gotta get it done. It's time to get, because it's gonna alleviate a lot of that down
Sure.
there. Because it's gonna take it straight down, it's not gonna cross the road anymore.
Okay,
That's what we put up with. That's what we're putting up with right now.
I understand. I
And,
understand.
I don't know, how long is it gonna take to get the bridge fixed? Talking about
Well,
this
we're not dealing
forever.
with PennDOT issues on those bridges, correct?
No,
Right,
there's all,
so
that's all.
once we get the bids
We already
in-
have county approval. That was one of the holdups we had because we had to go through the earth insurance. So that took a little
Okay.
bit of time. We had that, so that's why it took a little bit to get the specs done.
And like Joe said, you got to get the contractors, do the background checks, make sure they're
Right, that's in the
legitimate and
process
everything.
now.
So that's going to take time too. So it probably, I'm not going to, I don't know times with that, but it's probably going to be another 30 to 45 days or so before it gets started. Do you think it started fast?
Well, I mean, you're looking at getting the contract, getting the bids, and then reviewing the bids, and then getting shop drawings, and then for the ones at the golf course, that's why they're gonna take a little bit longer. We're just doing the pipe replacement at Laconia, so it's just pretty much ordering pipe. Now, I heard today that they're telling Public Works that for some pipe, they're waiting 12 to 16 weeks.
And that's just a supply chain issue that
Exactly.
everyone's dealing with. I'm aware of that.
So,
Right.
I don't know what the supply is right now on the pipe that we need. So,
Understood, understood. Thank you for that update, Mr.
no
Nero.
problem.
Let me see, the other question I had, and I mentioned this to Mr. Pizzo right before the meeting. I'm so happy to be back together with everybody. I'm so thrilled that we are live streaming our meetings on the internet. I would request that we continue to keep the email public comments live and check that. That way people who are live streaming or watching at home can send in their comments if they're unable to come and be here in the meeting. That way we can address public comments as they come up. So that's my request for Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, if we can continue to manage that email address.
We'll work together to make sure that we can take care of that.
I appreciate that. The other things, let's see, congratulations to all the graduates out there, seniors, high school, college. My youngest son is graduating pre-K this year at Judy Sayre.
Good.
So, you know, excited to see all the graduates this year and to have graduation celebrations, which is something that a lot of us missed last year. And then go Sixers.
Mr. Cogmatian?
Yep, thank you. Just a couple of points. Thanks to the board and mayor for supporting that concern with the dumpsters. Newcastle as well, thank you for the update. So hopefully that should be resolved, hopefully soon. Yep. Yeah, it looks great though. How recent were these pictures?
Today.
Oh, today? It looks great, yep.
They had till Friday to get out of there, shutting them down.
Yeah, that's what I had heard, yeah. Just two other points. Victory Square, yeah, please. I had emailed you last week in terms of that. They're saying that the equipment that they put in there isn't sufficient?
No, so I was actually emailed a couple people regarding this. So basically, it's more of a rain garden than a detention basin. So when the basin was converted over from a trap to the actual rain garden basin, there was a U-drain installed underneath the amended soils. So basically what happens is you have about 1.5 feet of water that will go into the basin, perk through the soil into the U-drain to drain out. When it reaches that 1'9" or whatever it is, there's an opening in the structure that then takes all the water out of the basin. So basically you have like a 72-hour period for all that water to percolate into the ground and drain out. Friday morning, we got the calls about complaining about it. Our inspector went out about 9 o'clock and the U-drain was actually working. Now today, he went over at the end of the day, there was no water coming out of the U-drain, but there was still a couple inches of water in the floor of the basin. So we're not sure if it's just the level is not pushing it through because the pipe is actually flat. So you have a perforated pipe that's flat, it's not gonna push water through it.
Right.
So we're not sure if that's the case, but we're gonna keep an eye on it.
Yeah, if you
'Cause
could,
it's raining
please,
right now.
maybe, yeah. Can you go out now and check?
I
it out?
can, but I'm stuck here.
No, I know he does.
Does it
he's
need more
he's
head
great.
pressure to get to a certain point until?
That's what I'm thinking, because, I mean, you're talking about 12 inches of soil that's
Yeah.
gotta perk through to get to the U-drain, and it's a flat
It
floor.
just needs that static pressure.
Right.
Yeah, but they were saying it was overflowing, that it was causing a lot of issues down there, so.
Well, I'm not sure about the overflow. The only thing I can say is from the picture we took on Friday, and that was from the rain that was Wednesday night, we're assuming, that the pipe outfall was only taking like an inch of water through the 8-inch opening that the control. So it's probably like another 2 feet before it actually overflows.
Right.
Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know if it did overflow, but there was no evidence of the overflow.
All right, if you could just keep your eye on it,
We're gonna keep an
please.
eye on it.
Thank
Because,
you.
and I know one of the businesses had asked, because they were showing pictures of other detention bases where you have like a green lawn and that structure out there. It's not what this is.
Right.
So I know there's,
But ideally, their mindset is that it's supposed to funnel the rainwater regardless. I mean,
Right. yeah, so we're keeping an eye on it. I know there's, I was looking at it before the meeting, that there's a special mix that's going in the floor that should have been placed in there. So we're assuming the contractors did put the right seed mix down and plant mix. So we'll have to wait until it grows.
Any ETA on the paving the roads?
One thing, I did talk to Lennar about a week and a half ago, I guess, from some other issues, and I brought that up again. We're trying to coordinate when they're working down at Waterside, because we'll do a proof roll on the road, just to see if there's any movement. So we have to get a loaded truck. So we put like 40 tons of material in that, ride the truck around. If there's any movement, we know where we already have the areas where we have questions, so we already have them marked out, so we just gotta get a truck out and schedule. And we don't have that availability yet. So as soon as they bring stone down to the site, they're supposed to stop at Galloway.
So potentially the end of June, the end of July?
They're still looking to get it done in the next couple of weeks, get it paved.
Okay.
So that was actually of last week, early last week.
All right, thank you. And one other point, the residents reached out. I had spoke to Chuck McMullen a while back in terms of renovations of the rink at Bensalem Community Park. I think that's slated to be done.
Hockey rink?
The hockey rink, yeah, yeah. Do we have an update on that, or do you?
All I can tell you is $100,000.
I know, he told me,
That's what I think. So
but I think we're gonna scale that down, but at least try to do something to make that
yeah,
workable.
yeah, we'll work.
Okay. Possibility to have anything resolved by this summer for that? I mean, so I'm trying to,
I'm going to doubt it if it will be done this summer. I'm not going to lie to you, we're going to try, but
all right.
it's a big deal. We're just on the playground over there now, Imagination Land.
Yeah,
We're taking all that old parts, putting all new parts, been closed for a while.
yeah, I saw that, yeah.
That's all right, they don't have to hear me. I'm a lesser
Okay. Even if we do something to at least temporarily make it somewhat usable. I know, but there's cracks, it's dangerous, and, you know, it's a safety issue at this point.
And I was talking to somebody about that, I called Chuck about that, and he said that they patched the cracks, and I confirmed with someone that plays there, actually. They temporarily patched the cracks so they can use it. It's just not fully paved, so they
Right.
knew it was going to be a holdup with the bidding process and the material available and the cost involved, but so they temporarily paved
Yeah, I
the
wasn't aware of
cracks.
that,
Yeah, they filled the cracks. So now you can't get your, your rollerblade, you can't
Yeah.
get your skate caught in there or something, but, so it is patched.
All right.
But it's not fully replaced.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Just a couple of points. I just also wanted to echo the same sentiments. I'm super happy to be back and see our regulars too as well. So I also want, it's graduation season, so I wanted to congratulate all the graduates across Bensalem. They have had a very challenging year across this past year, so I wanted to just point out some positives with some of our students in Bensalem. There was, closer to my heart, the PJAS students were mentioned in the Bucks County Courier Times recently, based on the fact that they did those projects regionally and they were extremely successful. A number of them came through first place through the state. I also want to congratulate those BHS students that received awards at Night of Champions and the Senior Awards Night. I also wanted to mention there was an article from the Lower Bucks Times. A student of ours, Dhruvi Patel, Bensalem High School's Dhruvi Patel, placed second in Truemark Financial Credit Union's Virtual Financial Jeopardy, earning a $3,000 scholarship for her studies at Drexel University in the fall. So it's just great to see that our students have been able to work through the challenges of this year, and we're still seeing the success from a lot of our Bensalem students. And with that said, I think that does it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Knowles?
Yeah, I also would like to, it's nice to be back, that everybody know it's nice to be back in person. We were out at the concert to get the check from the Penn Community Bank, $60,000 support our amphitheater, and it was, it's a beautiful night out there, and take advantage of the concerts. It's a beautiful facility, the amphitheater. We do have, we have a lot of our residents or some outside people who are sometimes guests. And also, if you're coming into Bensalem to watch our concert, make sure you eat at our restaurants and stop at our bars and get some gas on the way out. All right, so we have some support here. Also, I would like to mention just what Mr. Takmasian was saying. Very impressed with the article. I think your wife was one of the sponsors for the event. But the kids in the STEM programs at Bensalem High School are just doing tremendous. The technology, we had they were with the robot contest last year, and now they're winning science fairs, they're winning math contests, and it's just a great thing that they're taking advantage of the facilities there at Bensalem High School, which are top notch now. And these kids are excelling in math and science, and it really makes us feel good about the future of our community. So also, I would like to wish everybody congratulations on your graduates. I have a kid across the street that's waiting to graduate from Bensalem High School. Apparently, it's not till next week, right? So he's ready to graduate, so that's a great thing that they're able to celebrate. They had a party at their house with the other kids, real good kids. So it's real nice. And I think next Sunday is Father's Day. I'm supposed to get a special meal or something, but, congratulations to all the fathers or those people who are, playing that role of fathers in our families, in our community, and providing some, leadership and some advice and mentoring for our kids. With that, thanks a lot.
Do you have any special requests for your meal? I mean,
No,
you're telling
no.
us about it. Is there a special request? You telling us so your wife knows what you want for dinner? Mr. Kisselback?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. June 14th, and it is Flag Day. For those of you who have continued waving your flag on your property from Memorial Day and continue it up into the state, that's the way I do it. It makes sense, and it gives everybody an opportunity to see how patriotic you are, and I think it's an important thing to consider doing, especially for council members. I think that would be nice to do. And for all the residents of Bensalem, I appreciate seeing those flags flying around, driving down Bensalem Boulevard, or Huneville Road, or Bristol Pike, whatever I'm driving through. So thank you, residents of Bensalem Township. Monsignor McIntyre retired from St. Ephraim's. Had a nice little picnic on Sunday. He is a great guy, very, very soft-spoken. He's everything you want to have in a priest or a pastor or a minister. So from the clergy point of view, I'd like to thank him for the, I guess, 20-plus years he's been in Bensalem.
19.
19. Why didn't he retire so early then? He could have had another more year, one more year. All right, at any rate, so for the 19 years he's been here, I want to thank him for everything he's done. He's always been in communication with us in Bensalem Township, so thank you, Monsignor McIntyre. The mayor mentioned about Huneville Road and Woodbine. This is a project that we've been working on for over a year. Everything's been put on hold, of course, but we're finally get to fruition to help those neighbors on Huneville Road. And I know when we're up here, we hear the residents, what they're saying, but you have to understand that government works slow. It's designed to work slow. Boy, we're pretty good at that. So I thank you, our students in Bensalem, which Ed Tookmeans had mentioned, since he has a connection there in high school. I'd like to reiterate what he said also. Congratulations to our graduates and all those in the programs that they have in Bensalem Township. And God bless you and thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you, Ed. I agree with everything said tonight. There's no reason for me to repeat everything. So our next meeting will be June 28th. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Stay safe. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
We're adjourned.